Oh, where is everybody? Has the vacation season started already?
So, wow.
So,
Yeah.
Your time change?
yeah, we spring forward to July. This is not July.
Some schools are already out though.
Could be. Okay, let's bow our heads and we'll have a word of prayer here. Our Holy Father, how great and good you are. You have given us every good and perfect gift. You have given us a life that is comfortable and pleasing and beautiful. And most of all, you've given us the hope of life after this world through your Son, of everything that is right and true. Our Father, we are mindful that we could be nothing without you. For you and your love towards us, we give you our eternal thanks. Thank you for the day that we've enjoyed, and now this time to gather in your name, to study from your word. We pray that you will help us, Father, to clear our minds of the issues of the day, and that we will have hearts that are ready to receive the truth, even when sometimes the truth is difficult to understand. We pray that we may always have a heart of faith, and that we will live a life that is an example of that faith to the world, to our family, to each other, and to you. Please forgive us when we sin against you, and we ask that you will be patient with us. Please be merciful. We pray that in the final day, when we're finished with this world, you will take us home. Through Christ we pray. All right, it's been about 10 days since we've had our last class. It was Sunday a week ago. And in that class, we got way ahead of ourselves. I lost control of the class. Questions were being asked that were way out ahead of us. And we ended up playing whack-a-mole. You know what that is? You've been to that way out. We had hit a point here, a point there, and someone said, well, what about this and what about that? And I should have stopped everything, said, stop, we'll talk about that later. Let's get back to where we were. We got off track somewhere around verse 17, 18, and we jumped way ahead to the end of the chapter. We missed everything in between, and we were starting to miss some things. So what I thought we needed to do here tonight is that we're going to come back and we're going to lay everything in its order so that we can avoid the confusion, because at the end of the class, I was even confused about some things that were being said and done. And I thought, well, wait a minute, we lost our track here. So we're going to come over here, and in the 20th chapter of Judges, we're going to come back and start with the verse 11. And before we start there, we show you this map. You've not seen this one before, but this is going to cover the area geographically of what we're going to be discussing tonight and in the next couple of classes. You'll see here the two cities we have marked, Mizpah and Gibeah. These will be the two major cities in this story in the tribe of Benjamin. Gibeah is just a few miles north of Jerusalem, if you notice in this map. And then above Mizpah is the city of Bethel. Bethel was the city where they had placed the ark. This is before David had come to build the temple. Well, he wasn't allowed to build the temple. Of course, Solomon would build the temple. But they were already gathering in Jerusalem, but they were going to Bethel. Then later on, as we had already noted, in the city of Dan, the Rehoboam, after the kingdom divided, after Solomon died, would set up an idol there, and I showed you pictures of where that place was. So this is basically just a very general geographical picture of what we're going to be discussing tonight and in the next couple of classes here. So we begin in verse 11 here. This is where all of Israel gathered together as one man. And we had noted in the class that this is the first time since the second chapter of Judges that all of Israel had been together with one mind, one place, one objective. When we get to the third chapter of Judges, they all went to their respective lands that had been given to them, and they were fighting and trying to take the land back and all of the things that happened in between there. So in verse 11, all of Israel is gathered as one man. But the reason they're doing this here, just to refresh our memories, is that they are incensed, they are infuriated with the tribe of Benjamin because what had happened to this concubine, that the man of Gibeah had taken this woman and had cut her up in 12 pieces and sent her out through all the tribes. And they didn't know exactly what had happened, but they knew something terrible had happened. And as we had said, this was basically a call to arms, that they're all going to come together and act as one people, as God's people. So in verse 11, they gather together. Now we pick up in verse 12 here tonight. Then the tribes of Israel sent men through all the tribe of Benjamin, saying, what is this wickedness that has occurred among you? Now they know something bad has happened, and they know Benjamin is at fault, but they want to know exactly what has been going on. So verse 13, now therefore deliver up the men, the perverted men who are in Gibeah, that we may put them to death and remove the evil from Israel. Now isn't that interesting? What's their motive? What do they want to do? They want to remove the evil from Israel. And this is the pot calling the kettle black, or whatever proverb you want to use to describe this, is that this is rich. They're going to be so rebellious and so disobedient to God. But something triggers their anger and they are incensed. And so this chapter here is going to be showing the true nature of these people. And so as we've just read here in verse 13, Benjamin is going to refuse to deliver these evil men. Notice the last line of verse 13. The children of Benjamin would not listen to the voice of their brethren, the children of Israel. So this is what is going to start this terrible episode in the history of Israel. So verse 14 said, instead, the children of Benjamin gathered together from their cities to Gibeah to go to battle against the children of Israel. Now, one thing that I have noted in other studies, and you probably picked up on this too here, that among all of the tribes, the fiercest, the most warlike, and the most effective warriors came from the tribe of Benjamin. Benjamin was a tribe you did not mess with. Whether they had a chip on their shoulder because their father was the baby boy of the group or whatever, but many of them were left-handed. We talked about how effective and how deadly they were as warriors. And so they have a mindset to go with it, that if they're offended or if someone takes exception to them, like their own brothers did here, Benjamin says, we're not going to deliver these men up. We're going to go to war with you. So in verse 15, and from their cities at the time, the children of Benjamin numbered 26,000 men who drew the sword. So you can double that for a man and a woman and a child, and maybe you get up to about 100,000 people here, as it would be. But they have 26,000 who would draw the sword, and besides the inhabitants of Gibeah, who are numbered 700. So you have basically 26,700 men here who are ready to go to battle for this. Now, stop here for a moment, and let's remember what had happened. There was some inhospitability, if I can say that, in the city of Gibeah, when this man, unnamed, with his concubine, unnamed, comes to the city looking for rest, and the men of the city come out against the man and his host, and they say, you can't have the man, but the host says, you can have my daughter, and the traveler said, you can have my concubine. And they abused the concubine all night long until she is almost dead. Now, whether or not she was dead or not, one point will be made in our text when he says they murdered her. So it's likely that when he finds her the next morning, you remember, on the doorstep, that she was already dead. I do not think that he killed her, but he took her and then cut her up into 12 pieces and sent it out, and blamed the Benjaminites, the people from the city of Gibeah, for her murder. Huh?
It's interesting. We don't know what happened to his daughter.
Yeah. Did they
I mean,
even
we know
take
what
her?
happened to her, but we don't know
Yeah.
the end result.
Right. So this is a strange story all the way around. That everywhere you look in this story, there is a unnatural, inordinate, ungodly demonstration of a disobedient and rebellious heart among the individuals and among the peoples of the city, the peoples of the tribe. And they're just going to go nuts on this. And they're just going to show how out of control that they have left the law of God. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. But we pick up here now in verse 16. Among all this people, there were 700 select men who were left-handed. Everyone could sling a stone at a hair's breadth and not miss. This is why we had mentioned these men were not only warlike, they were very good. They were skilled and able to, they were almost like a gun. They could throw a projectile, and within a hair's breadth, that's a pretty good shot. Guys with guns talk about groupings, where we can group some shots together. These fellows can take some small stones and group them together. That's what this statement is saying. So that's pretty amazing there. Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, same, back chapter 4, he was a Benjamite, same, yeah, highly trained, skilled folks. And also, I think David, when he was running from Saul, he hooked up with some Benjamites. He did some fierce fighting too with just a few guys.
They were great people to have on your side, if you could get them on your side. But if they were against you, which suggests there's a temper here. There is not a full, they don't have the full package of common sense. I think common sense is a rare commodity here by now in this region here. So verse 17 says, now besides Benjamin, the men of Israel numbered 400,000 men who drew the sword. All of these were men of war. So you've got basically 26,700 and maybe an additional 700. So you'd have about 27 for just less than 28,000 men who are going to go up against 400,000 Israelites. And they're not just Israelites, they're warriors. So these are soldiers on soldiers. This is not just the general community, not the population, but these are men on both sides who are trained for war. And so the children of Israel, they were in verse 18, they arose and went up to the house of God to ask counsel of God. This is the city of Bethel. So they're going to go first against Bethlehem. I'm going to read this, Benjamin. This is the first calling. Now this is where we got off track Sunday a couple of weeks ago when we were asking about what happened in number 3. And we were trying to figure out number 1. And we go from 1 to 3, back to 2, and back and forth. And that got everybody mixed up. Well, what about this and what about that? So I promise you in the future, I'm going to try to pull the reins and say, we'll get to that and not get too far ahead of ourselves here. Now, the first occasion where now they go up to the Lord, because Bethel is the place where the ark is, the city we just showed you on the map a moment ago. And so they go there and to ask counsel of God. And they said, which of us shall go up first to battle against the children of Israel? And the Lord said, Judah shall go up first. Now, I don't know how this happened because we're not going to read about the priest Phineas until the third occasion where they come ask. Was Phineas there in number 1 and number 2? I have a feeling that's probably what's going on here, even though he will be named at the third time. Because the question that I would have in a study like this is that, how did they get God to answer them? And how and who did they get to appeal to God? Because you just couldn't walk up and start talking to God and get a direct revelation. They had to have a priest when they went into the synagogue. And here in this occasion where the Ark of the Covenant was, they knew this was the dwelling place of God, because when they brought it out of Egypt, you remember the cloud, a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. Wherever that pillar of cloud or fire stopped, what did the Israelites do besides just camp there? You remember what they did with the ark? They put it right under that pillar. That designated the presence of God. So that's where it went. And it didn't move until the pillar of cloud or pillar of fire by night moved. And when that moved, they got up and followed it, because this is God. This is the presence of God. And so, however that happened, they do get an answer and said, yes, ye shall go up against him, and send Judah first. Why would... There's no definitive answer here in this story. But is there any thought that comes to your mind about why would Judah be chosen to go first up against the Benjaminites? What significance did the tribe of Judah have in the overall story of the people of Israel going into the New Testament? Judah was the tribe that Jesus was from. This was the kingly tribe. This was the tribe where the promise would come true to them. And so Judah had some prominence, or even I would say preeminence of the others, because of the promise that would come to them, the Lion of Judah. And so for whatever and however that is working, God says, yes, go, and Judah shall go first. So verse 19, the children of Israel rose in the morning and encamped against Gibeah. Now that was our, for those of you who walk in late, let me just put it up here for us to see. Here's Gibeah down here, and Gibeah is just, Gibeah here, just above Jerusalem, and here's Mizpah up here. Here's Bethel, where the ark was, up here. So all of this is happening right here in the middle of the tribe, in the area that Benjamin would hold, right here. And they're the problem. And so the fighting is going to be all right in here, and it's going to be gathered really around here as this goes. Now let's get back to, we're 18, right? Yes. All right, any questions or comments so far? Sure. Okay. Verse 19, the children of Israel rose in the morning and encamped against Gibeah. And the men of Israel went out to battle against Benjamin, and the men of Israel put themselves into battle array to fight against them at Gibeah. Now, the men of Israel is 400,000. Now, you have 400,000. They're not just milling around. They are now in their formation. The Greeks were the ones who made famous the phalanx and became so successful militarily, because they were able to join the men together with their shields, and the phalanx of the Greek armies could overcome much larger armies. But when they were in formation, everybody knew, here they come. John?
And that's the significance of the left-handed soldier. In the phalanx, they had to hold a shield with their left arm. So what you had with those 700 left-handed soldiers is someone who could use either hand with the sword. And that was what was significant in battle. When once it broke up, now you have a man who's doubly dangerous.
That's exactly right. I made this point earlier, a few months ago, when we first talked about the left-handed. And some of you may remember, because some of you knew, when I was here many decades ago, Michael Ferris. You remember Michael? Michael was a terrific athlete, but he was left-handed. and he and I would play racquetball and beat each other up. Because when you're right-handed and you play right-handed people, you know which side to go and attack, etc. Turn around and I would be on the wrong side, he would hit me in the back, he'd be on the wrong side, I'd hit him in the back. We beat each other up till finally, after a couple of times, that, this isn't worth it. Which it hurts so bad. But the left-handed man would have an advantage. Even in boxers, this is, they'll go from righty to lefty. There's great advantages with that, and John's point is a good point about that. But when the Israelites, who number over 400,000, when they are in formation, that's an ominous thing. To see one bomber go over, if you were in Vietnam or something like that, that could be spooky. But when they would come in formation, planes in formation have a traumatic effect upon the men on the ground, because they know now that this isn't just some casual flying. Here, there is a definitive purpose, and it is to kill and to destroy. And this army is now gathered together, and they have come out and arrayed themselves, put themselves in battle array, what they're wearing and where they're standing, to fight against them in Gibeah. Then the children of Benjamin came out of Gibeah, and on that day cut down to the ground 22,000 men of the Israelites. How does this happen? They have, say, 28,000 men, and they're going up against 400,000, and they kill 22,000. Wonder what the Israelites thought about this. So verse 22, and the people, that is the men of Israel, encouraged themselves and again formed the battle line at the place where they had put themselves in array on the first day. So now the next day they said, come on, this can't happen again. So they put themselves in this position again and in this formation. And the children of Israel went up and wept before the Lord until evening and asked counsel of the Lord, saying, shall I again draw near for battle against the children of my brother Benjamin? And the Lord said, go up against them. So here now, the second time, Israel weeps before the Lord. They can't figure out what has gone on, and they ask the Lord, should we go back? Maybe we're doing something wrong. That's how I would feel. I don't know about you. But if I had them outnumbered 6-1 or something like that, and the Lord said go, and all of a sudden we can't do anything to them, and they take out a portion of our troops, I'm thinking, we've done something wrong here. They were, I don't think, too far removed from the story of Joshua, Jericho, and then the next city was Ai. They had a great victory in Jericho, but then someone had stolen something, had broken God's law, and they had great defeat in Ai. And God said, you better clean your house up. There's sin in the camp. Nick?
Am I just reading it wrong? So I understand that the total men mustered is 400,000. But if Judah's to go up against them first, does that not mean that we don't have a number? I get that. But only the men Judah brought went up against them. So they may not be totally outnumbered if you figure out how many men.
That could be.
Each of the 11 tribes might have only brought 30,000 men.
That could be.
And so that made it a little more fair fight, so to speak.
And on the other side, meaning going out first is that they're in the first wave.
Sure.
And then there's a second, third, and fourth wave. That's how I would understand that, but I don't know if that's right or not. But they certainly had the reserves to call upon if they needed them to go against these Benjaminites. And it didn't work out for them. So they cry out to the Lord again, shall we draw near for battle? The Lord said, go up. Yeah, all right, do this. So verse 24, the children of Israel approached the children of Benjamin on the second day. And Benjamin went out against them from Gibeah on the second day and cut down to the ground 18,000 more of the children of Israel. Now that tells us that it's not just from the tribe of Judah, but from the children of Israel, all these drew the sword. So what we have now is that 18,000 of the Israelites from all of the tribes, however it was gathered together, they take down 18 more. Now that's That's 40,000 men in 2 days. That's 10% of their army. In 2 days, they've taken out 10%. And there's no record of any loss from the Benjaminites. Now, there may have been, but there's no record of it. And so sit there and think, wow, how is this happening? So verse 25, Benjamin went out against them, Gibeah, on the second day, cut down the ground 18,000 more of the children of Israel. All these drew the sword. They were fighting. They weren't just the peripheral people. These were soldiers who were actively engaged. And so verse 26, all the children of Israel, that is, all the people, went up and came to the house of God and wept. They sat there before the Lord and fasted that day until evening, and they offered burnt offerings and sacrifice. So here they're going up to Bethel, the city up in the north part of the tribe of Benjamin, and they are weeping, they are fasting, and they are sacrificing. And here it is when they're going to they're going to ask from the Lord to get the third time is what they're going to do here. So there's 3 occasions where they ask God. And on the third occasion, this is where Phinehas comes in to the scene. You see, verse 28, and Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, stood before it in those days, saying, shall I yet again go out to battle against the children of my brother Benjamin? Or shall I stop? Shall I cease? And the Lord said, go up, for tomorrow I will deliver them into your hand. So the third time God says, no, I want you to go up, because now I'm going to deliver them into your hand. Now, I know this isn't always a productive thing to do in a class, but sometimes it helps us get a little bigger picture here. And we don't want to speculate too far, but I think there's certainly some space in which we can think about this and margin of why would God do this? Now, that's a dangerous thing to try to read the mind of God, but when we look in the context of the story, I think we can get a pretty good idea. Why would the Lord tell them to go 2 times? And they suffer 40,000 casualties. And then the third time, they're still asking him. They don't abandon God. The third time they come, and now Phinehas comes into the picture. I don't know if he was in the first 2 or not. That was part of in our last class, we were going back and forth between what happened between number 1, number 2, and 3. Well, whether he was there or not, I'm not sure. It could be. But on this third one, when God says, I'm delivering them up to your hand, they went, and maybe they had a little better idea. Someone had a hand up here.
The only thing I could think of was that on that occasion, they actually went up to Bethel to the Ark of the Covenant. I mean, they went to the holiest place they could go to get the maximum chance of an answered prayer, and that maybe God had said, okay, now you did it right, now they're going to be yours. I don't know.
Well, in verse 18, they went up to the house of God, and that was in Bethel. So it argues that they had already gone there, and Phinehas was there. That's why I say that when we wonder about that, this is where Phinehas is, and so I suspect that he was there during the first 2 occasions where they asked him. It's just that he's named in the third one. Keith?
It's fairly subtle, and there again, I don't know either, but at the first, they asked God, which tribe shall go up? Here, they're saying, shall we go up? And maybe they said the same thing there, it wasn't recorded, I don't know. But it's a rather subtle difference, but this request here seems to me to be their prostrate on the ground. Their, Lord, what do you want us to do? It seems to be more humble. There seems to be more humility involved in this asking than at the onset.
I think that is certainly true. If you go back and look at verse 18 again here, this last part, when they said, which one of us shall go up first? What would that suggest in the minds of these Israelite men who want to exact their revenge on Benjamin? What would that suggest? They have 400,000 men.
They already have their mind made up.
Should tell me again?
They already have their mind made up, that's what they're gonna do.
Oh, yeah. They, even before they came to Bethel, they had their mind made up. But when they said, which one of us shall go up first?
Was it a pride thing, maybe? No?
Could be. Think about that. You got 400,000. Jillian?
First ones get killed.
First one to get killed?
You go first.
Yeah. What else could be going on in their mind? They're going to lay these people low. They're going to desolate. This is going to be a take no prisoners. It is going to be a burn and level. Who wants to go first? They all may be saying, this is going to be such an easy route. We're not going to be killed. They're the ones who are going to suffer. Which one of us should go in first? There's a sense of honor there. Because their language in that verse 18, in this first time, is that this is going to be a piece of cake. We're going to just steamroll in here and we're going to spank them good and tear this down. And that's, to Keith's point, by the time you get to verse 27, their attitude has changed considerably. Now they're more humble. They realize that this is not so easy, and God has allowed us to be defeated not once but twice. And now we don't exactly know what's going on here. John?
I think there's a couple things going on. One is obviously they don't remember history. Because if you look back at history of the Israelites, you can see, what we do with 300 men? What did God do with... See, they're all hung up on, it's us against him, against Benjamites, the Benjamites. Okay, so we've got this. And I think the first two battles are God saying, you ain't got it. You've got it when I say you have it. And like he said, by the third time, they're starting to realize, oh yeah, maybe something hit. Read some of these things, right?
I have a feeling that may likely be the case here, is that they're all in trouble, and God's going to let them beat up on each other. They're going to wipe out Benjamin, but he's not going to let that happen until first Israel is going to get a pretty rough treatment here, and they're going to lose several thousand men, 40,000, and they're going to have to see what's going to happen. And when they do win, they don't handle that very well. And what they're going to be doing next it's just, that's why I said at the beginning, everywhere you turn in this story, it's just bad news. It is a ungodly, immoral, and selfish thing that's driving them. That they've been fully Canaanized. Even though they still will talk to God and appeal to him, they're going to do what they think they should do. And so God says, all right, let's see who's in charge here. Because I believe in verse 18, they're thinking, well, who wants to go first? This is going to be pretty easy. Who will get the glory? We're going to take care of this and manage it. And no, they're not. And then the second time, no, you're not. And then the third time, notice that phrase we have there in verse 28, I will deliver them into your hand. You're not going to win. I'm going to give you the victory. And whether or not they all learned that lesson or not and got what was going on, we don't know. But in verse 28, God says, go on up, for tomorrow I will deliver them into your hand. And that is what happens. And so in verse 29, they set the ambush. And this is what now it goes on through the rest of this chapter as we go between the cities of Gibeah and Mizpah. All right, any question before we move on? This was the area where we were playing whack-a-mole Sunday morning with the class. So this is the sequence of events. This is how it happened. And who all was involved and how all that was involved. You know, we can sit here and scratch our head and wonder about it, but in the final analysis, God's the one who's controlling everything on this and leading them to a pretty ugly conclusion here. So, Verse 29, Israel set men in an ambush all around Gibeah. And the children of Israel went up against the children of Benjamin on the third day, put themselves in battle array against Gibeah as at the other times. So it's the same formation, same thing. Now they've got about 360,000 men. But they get into battle array, and they're going to go at them just like they did before in verse 31. So the children of Benjamin went out against the people and were drawn away from the city. Now let's come back to our map here. I think I put it there. Yeah. So they're in Gibeah. They're drawn away from the city. And, okay. And verse 31 again. So the children of Israel, of Benjamin, went out against the people, were drawn away from the city. They began to strike down and kill some of the people, as at the other times. So far, number 3 is happening just like numbers 1 and 2. This third battle is going on just like it had before. In the highways, one of which goes up to Bethel and the other to Gibeah. You see where we're looking at here? Highway goes up to Bethel, down to Gibeah. That's I-5, right there. Go north-south, there it is. And the children of Benjamin, verse 32, said, they are struck down before us as at first. So they're thinking, hey, we've got this thing in the bag. What's the matter with those guys? They can't fight. Well, who's on our side? I wonder what they would think about that. Let us flee and draw them away from the city to the highways. But the children, pardon me, I got ahead of myself. But the children of Israel said, let us flee and draw them away from the cities to the highways. So they've been in the city. They're going to pull them out here. And there's the ambush that is set up. So verse 33, all the men of Israel rose from their place and put themselves in battle array at Baal Tamar. Then Israel's men in ambush burst forth from their position in the plain of Geba. That's in between Bethel and Gibeah. They've been out there waiting. So they've drawn the Benjaminites out of their city of Gibeah. And while they've drawn them out, this is an old tactic we see in, old movies, war movies and westerns and things like that. We're going to draw them out, and then our forces are going to come over the mountain and we're going to take them out. Verse 34, then 10,000 select men from all of Israel came against Gibeah. Well, what do you suppose that term select men mean? These are the Navy SEALs. That's what this means. It means these are the best of the best, the elite. The men who have been trained to be able to fight and win. Not just to fight, but fight and win. These are these select men that have come out, 10,000 of them. And the battle was fierce, but the Benjaminites did not know that disaster was upon them. And the Lord defeated Benjamin before Israel. And the children of Israel destroyed that day 25,100 Benjamites. How many did they have to begin with? 28? Maybe a little more? That pretty much takes them down almost to 0. So verse 36, so the children of Benjamin saw that they were defeated. Men of Israel had given ground to the Benjamites, because they relied on the men in ambush whom they had set against Gibeah. And the men in ambush quickly rushed upon Gibeah. The men in ambush spread out and struck the whole city with the edge of the sword. You'll notice they go into Gibeah. The soldiers leave Gibeah. They're drawn out by the soldiers up north. And the others come back, not the 10,000. The 10,000 select fight these Benjamites in the plain of Tamar. But the rest of the soldiers go into the city, and the city now is defenseless. All the soldiers are gone. Women, children, aged. And so it's just an easy victory for them. But they don't just win the battle. They're going to strike and kill everything there. Verse 38, now the appointed signal between the men of Israel and the men in ambush was that they would make a great cloud of smoke rise up from the city, whereupon the men of Israel returned in battle Now Benjamin had begun to strike and kill about 30 of the men of Israel, for they said, surely they are defeated before us, as in the first battle. They're walking right into the ambush, and they think, we're winning, no problem. But when the cloud began to rise from the city in a column of smoke, the Benjamites looked behind them, and there was the whole city going up in smoke to heaven. Don't you know that was a sick feeling that came upon them when they look back and go, uh-oh, we've just been had. And now when you see that, you think, okay, they're waiting to kill us. I probably won't make it back to the city. John?
I find it interesting that they have no problem, the Israelites, wiping out Benjamites, right? None. Women, children, they hack them all up. Had they done that, when they entered the land of Canaan, all this would have been avoided. Had they wiped out all the Canaanites like they were supposed to
Right.
in the first place,
Yeah.
this could have all been avoided.
What do you think is the difference between the two? What's the difference?
One was God's plan and one was theirs.
What was going on in the minds of the Israelites? The difference between at the beginning in Joshua 3 and now here in Joshua 20. What do you think? That speaks to a very important point in this story. And John's right. Had they done that at the beginning, they would have had all this. Why are they thinking different? Linda?
Well, at that time, they just thought, well, we're the Lord's people.
Yeah.
We can do whatever we want. And now they're realizing that they're not quite in favor with the Lord like they thought.
Was there any personal anger towards the Canaanites? Was there any personal vendetta that the Israelites had against the people of Canaan? They didn't know these people. They'd never been there before. They were all strangers. God just told them to take them out. But that's just all they know. They've not had any real physical interaction with these people yet. But now with Benjamin, these people, the Israelites, the rest of them, they're white hot in their anger. And their anger is now driving them not only to destroy the people of the land, but they don't stop and think, these are our brothers that were restored. But they go too far. To defeat them is one thing, and as we'll see here Sunday morning, no, next Wednesday night, as we'll see a week from tonight, is that as often when people get upset, they go too far. And it's a wise person who realizes that even though I may be upset, I need to hold myself in check. Because the consequence of their anger in this episode in chapter 20 is going to be devastating for the tribes of Israel. And it's going to cause them to make one bad decision after another, after another, after another, until now they are just in a mess. And it's all self-produced. They've gotten themselves in this mess. The Lord is just letting them do that, because now they need to see themselves as they are. And that's what's happening here. So let's read a couple more verses here, and then we'll finish it. So they saw it going up in smoke. So verse 41, and when the men of Israel turned back, the men of Benjamin panicked, for they saw that disaster had come upon them. Therefore they turned their backs before the men of Israel in the direction of the wilderness, but the battle overtook them. They've gone out to face them to fight in the plain, but when they look over their shoulder and they see their city on fire, they turn around, and now they're going back to the city, and they've just turned their back on the army that's coming, advancing to destroy them. You don't win, you don't survive in a retreat like that. It's just a terrible thing here. So they turned their backs, verse 42, on the men of Israel, and the battle overtook them. Whoever had come out of the cities, they destroyed in their midst. So now this is becoming a wholesale slaughter. That they are killing the men in the plain who are the warriors, the soldiers, and they've gone into the city and they're destroying everything. And any man who comes out of that city, the others are waiting to kill them too. They're trapped. They have nowhere to go. And so the Israelites are going to exact a terrible, terrible toll upon the Benjamites that are going to come back and bite them for that. All right, that's hopefully cleared up the confusion last Sunday. We'll pick up here next week. Thank you. You guys have a suggestion? That's fine. Thanks.
Well, we had an accident, so we're next to that long. That's right, I had my dress. Yeah, let's see that. Yeah. No one's helping me. She got one. Hey, Robin, please sit here. Are you a baby or
Right. Oh, it's all spicy. Great with that
You some Spider-Man pajamas.
Good evening, everyone. Good to have you all here tonight. The only announcement I have is just a reminder about VBS coming up in a couple weeks. And I believe there's a volunteer sheet to sign up for. If you can see Natasha about that. Other than that, that is it for tonight. James Tapper will lead us in song. Josh will lead us in our closing prayer. And Warren Burke will be speaking to us tonight. Thank you.
All right, blessed assurance.
Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. Heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, all is at rest. I and my Savior, and happy and blessed, watching and waiting, looking above, filled with His goodness, lost in His love. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, we're going to start off. I want to read a few verses, and then I'll have some words for them. So we're going to read from the book of 1 Timothy, starting at verse 11 through 16. So 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 11 through 16. And I'm reading from New King James. And of course, this is Paul talking about him, encouraging him. These things command and teach. Let no one despise your youth, but be an example to the believers in word, in conduct, in love, in spirit, in faith, in purity. Till I come, give attention to reading, to exhortation, to doctrine. Do not neglect the gift that is in you, which was given to you by prophecy with the laying on of the hands of the presbytery. Mediate on these things, give yourself entirely to them, that your progress may be evident to all. Take heed to yourself and to the doctrine. Continue in them, for in doing this, you will save both yourself and those who hear you. So as I mentioned, this is Paul, and he's talking to Timothy, asking him to do a couple of things. So with that, I'm going to give you guys a question. So how many of you have ever hit yourself in the thumb or the finger with a hammer? Raise your hand. Hey, I see a few ladies. Wow, there's a lot of people that have done that. Wow. What do you think caused you to hit your thumb or your finger? Probably one of three things. You're in a hurry, trying to get something done, trying to squeeze out those last few nails to finish whatever project you were doing. You didn't have the right tool for the job. You're either trying to hit a nail with a little small head with a really big hammer, or what happened to me, is I got distracted by something else, and I lost focus. I lost focus on the task at hand. I lost focus on what I was doing. The next thing you know, my thumb is a couple sizes bigger than it was. So in reading from Timothy, in those passages, a couple of the verses, he wants Timothy to really focus on some things. So in verse 13, he's talking about, till I come, give attention to reading, to exhortation, to doctrine. So he wants him to really focus on studying, being prepared, learning more, and gaining more knowledge so that he will be strong when he has those confrontations with those who are older than him, because he's not very old, of course, so his youth is going to be sometimes a hurdle in the situations that he gets in when he's teaching. And then go down to verse 16. Some of the verses will say, focus, and the New King James does say, take heed to yourself and to the doctrine. So once again, he wants Timothy to focus on the word, focus on what he is being taught, focus on his studies, focus on learning as much as possible so that he won't be distracted by someone who they feel, because of their age, because of their experience, because of their perceived understanding of a certain law or rule, that they're going to have more knowledge than him. They want him to be ready to take on those challenges. And that's going to take focus. That's going to take dedication and being, concentrating on the task at hand, not losing sight of what you really need to do. And that same thing applies to us. Because as we go through life, things can distract us. Things can cause us to not stay on the track, that heavenly path, where we need to think about what we're doing. Sometimes we stray, and that's how you need that mental, hammer on the thumb to kind of wake you up and say, hey, you're not supposed to be doing that. You need to turn back and get on the path so that you can stay focused on serving God, being true to him, putting your trust in Jesus and not in the world, focusing on that. And that's really hard. That's really hard for me. I have to do a lot of reading, a lot of relying on my wife and my family to keep me focused on those things, but most of all, trusting in God and trusting in Jesus to help me do that. And I think everyone needs to do that. So, there's a time and a place where you'll be in those situations and something could distract you from doing what you should be doing. You could be by yourself, you could be with a bunch of strangers thinking you could get away with something when you shouldn't. Keep that focus. Keep thinking about what Jesus would want you to do. I've seen those bumper stickers and those bracelets that say, what would Jesus do? And they're very applicable to a lot of times and situations in our lives. What would Jesus do? What would you do if Jesus was sitting right next to you? You can think of it that way. So that's what I wanted to bring up tonight. Not so much the pain that came from you hitting your hand with a hammer, but thinking about how you lost focus, and that's what made you possibly hit your hand. What's going to make you stray from God, not focusing on what you should do, or what you should be doing, or how you should be doing something, or what you should say, how you should say it. It's a lot. But if we keep trusting in God, keep praying to him for strength, keep focusing on what the right thing is to do, no matter how hard that is, we'll all do well. We'll really do well. So I thank you for your time. If there's anyone here that needs prayers of the congregation, that needs some help with focus, you can come forward and speak with the elders, or any one of us will help you. If there's anyone here that wants to be baptized, for the remission of your sins, we can do that tonight too. So please stand and sing with me as we, please stand as we sing a song.
Restore my spirit, Lord, I need restored. My heart is weary, please help me, dear Lord. I stand in need of more strength from your word. Renew my love, rebuild my faith, oh, restore my soul. Revive the fire, Lord, deep in my soul. Stir my desire to work in your fold. Light in my heart, dear God, your zeal grow cold. Renew my love, rebuild my faith, oh, restore my soul. Renew my courage, Lord, it needs restored. My cup is empty, refill it, dear Lord. Replace all doubts and fear with faith so bold. Renew my love, rebuild my faith, oh, restore my soul.
Let us pray. Father in heaven, thank you for this time we come together and worship you, God, and learn more of your word. Please help us to get into your word and learn what Jesus would do and also have the courage to follow it. Help us to go out to the world, be that light, and to do your will in our lives. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.